Ford South Africa and the National Consumer Commission are set to brief the media this morning about its troubled Ford Kuga vehicles. Around 46 cars have caught fire since last year. In the most recent case, a Kuga reportedly burst into flames on a Johannesburg highway at the weekend. So what legal recourse is there for those affected by defective Ford Kugas? Well, joining us to unpack some of those legal possibilities is Ulrich Roux from BDK Attorneys. Ulrich, good morning and thank you very much for your time this morning. Just firstly, just before we go into some other details that have come up regarding this case, I mean, this has been going on for quite some time, and some of the people affected by these have been saying to Ford, you're dragging your feet on this. And I know that one family in particular raised the issue even with the motor industry. I mean, from a legal perspective, I mean, what's available to you? I mean, we know we've got Consumer Protection Act in the country, just broadly.
Morning, Dan. Yes, there was a person who passed away in December 2015.
Yeah, that's the Rachel Jimmy family.
Mr. Jimmy, yes.
Jimmy passed away, yes.
And it was as a result of his Ford Kuga catching alight. Now, December 2015 is a long time ago, and Ford have not really been forthcoming with any statements thus far. And one can understand that, you know, a proper investigation must be conducted before you can place the liability at the doorstep of Ford. But having said that, as you said now, there's 46 vehicles that have caught alight since December 2015. Now, clearly there's a problem with these vehicles. The one legal recourse is it's been reported to the National Consumer Commission, and the National Consumer Commission is a watchdog, so to speak, of the Consumer Protection Act. So they're there to ensure that consumers' rights are enforced. Now, they made contact with Ford South Africa, and they've granted them an opportunity until February, the end of February this year, to furnish them with a report as to why these vehicles are catching alight, what they are doing to prevent this, whether they're going to recall the vehicles or any other steps that they're going to take. Now, in the meantime, more vehicles have caught alight, so I expect them today to possibly say that they're going to recall these vehicles. There's potential lawsuits that are at the doorstep of Ford if this continues.
So we'll find out what they're going to say today. But according to the family, Rachel Jimmy's family, we understand the majority of those affected apparently have now agreed to bring a class action lawsuit against Ford. That's also been reported. Now, 46 vehicles, I mean, is that enough to bring a class lawsuit against anybody?
Yes, definitely. 46 is more than sufficient. And I think we must quickly explain what a class action entails. You know, it's an unfamiliar concept to South Africans. All we know about it really is what we've seen on American law shows and what we've read in John Grisham novels. But in 2013, a case was decided upon at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein, and we call it the Pioneer Foods case. And there, the court was approached to certify a class action suit on behalf of consumers who suffered damages because of a bread price fixing cartel. And the court found in their favor. So what this entails is that one person who is affected by the certain actions of a service provider can approach a court to certify a class action. And if that action is successful at the end of the day, all people who have been affected by similar circumstances and the similar service provider can then lodge a claim, obviously if they fall within that class on whose behalf the action was brought. So very interesting, and certainly they could approach a court. You know, the one difficulty that they would face is that people would have had to have suffered damages. So in other words, the vehicle must have caught alight, they must have tried to sell the vehicle, but they couldn't because of the problems that the vehicle is experiencing, or they weren't reimbursed if the vehicle suffered serious financial loss. So all of these people will have to come forward if there's a successful
So a class action, you have to do it together as a group.
One person can bring the action, and that person can then act on behalf of all the people who fall within the definition of that class. So very interesting law, and the court must first be approached in order to authorize the class action to say, well, people who fall within this specific class will be entitled to relief if the action is successful at the end of the day.
So whatever Ford will be announcing today will be taken into consideration or into account. So if you were planning a class action, you'll have to listen very carefully to what Ford has to say today.
Yes, definitely. And I think, you know, one can't help but to think that Ford is in a very difficult situation at the moment. You know, If they recall all of those vehicles, serious financial loss will be suffered because they will have to reimburse the people who bought those vehicles. They cannot simply just ignore this issue anymore. I mean, in the last 3 days, 2 vehicles have caught alight. They have come forward and said that there is a problem with specifically the 2013 Ford Kuga EcoBoost 1.6 model, and that it is limited to that model. So they've essentially accepted responsibility for the fires in the vehicles, and they're going to have to plan very carefully how they treat this. As I said, I expect them to possibly say that they're recalling those vehicles, and that the report that they're going to furnish at the end of February will shed more light as to how they are to proceed with this going forward.
Thank you very much. That's Ulrich Roux from BDK Attorneys.